They must be 30 feet long, man. They're not nukes or nothing, but the bang sure would make your butt pucker. Welcome to Hey Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, this is Liam, and this week we watched Deep Rising, a film released in 1998 starring Treat Williams, directed by Stephen Sommers. Now, starring Treat Williams, you don't really get a film starring Treat Williams unless it's a straight to DVD. And I do believe people slept on Treat Williams in Deep Rising because, okay, it was going to be Harrison Ford, but man, I loved Treat Williams in this film.
Did you really?
Yeah, I still do. I rewatched it, right? And I think if you've got a problem with him, you're sleeping on it. Honestly.
No. I don't have an issue with him, right? Because I was going into this, and I know him from like a handful of films and smaller roles. It was always the idea of him being a leading man. I was like, really, Treat Williams, a leading man? I wasn't sure about it. And then I watched it, and he is charming in it. He's good with the one-liners, but he has one major problem. He's too fucking dadsy. He's just too dadsy, dude. The way he dresses.
Does look like your dad, yeah.
Even like right at the end of the film, when he spoiler alert, when he finally kisses Famke Janssen on the beach, even he looks like he's just been caught kissing his daughter's best friend. Like he was just like, whoa, I have no idea what I'm doing here, kissing this woman, but I'm just gonna go with it. Like I said, he's fun. He's not a leading man. I'm not surprised that Stephen Sommers decided to go with, say, Brendan Fraser the next year for The Mummy, for instance.
Yeah. Oh, no, let's be fair. I mean, poor Treat Williams didn't get many more starring roles after this, unless, like I said, it was straight to DVD.
Well, the film bombed, didn't it? And the thing is...
Yeah, but the film bombed. It was following bloody Titanic. It was never going to...
Oh, yeah, but I mean, this was like one of those weird... It could have been another one of those, like, where the years where you get like the same film twice. The big famous ones, obviously, like Armageddon and Deep Impact, Dante's Inferno versus Volcano. This should have been Deep Rising versus Godzilla, but this film wasn't good enough. And there's loads of it, like, Treat Williams isn't a leading man.
Hang on. This film wasn't good enough compared to Matthew Broderick's Godzilla.
Yeah, the difference is... No. I completely see where you're going here, and I understand that. Godzilla is a bad film. Roland Emmerich's Godzilla is a bad film. There's one big difference. It has Godzilla in the title. And not only that, you've got Roland Emmerich, who's coming off one of the biggest films of all time. He's just an independent. Nobody's selling Godzilla, even back in 98, on Matthew Broderick. They're selling on Roland Emmerich and the guy who just made Independence Day.
I mean,
so that film... And it had that massive soundtrack as well. I had so many things going for it. This film has zero going for it. And I just want to be clear. I don't hate this film, but I can absolutely see why this film bombed. There are so many reasons why this film bombed.
The problem this film had as well, I will agree, it had a myriad of problems. But one of the problems it had was trying to explain the monster. Like when that guy turned around and said something about a fish nobody's heard and said it like some depth, they're this long, another depth, they're this long, but what are they at this depth? Like, mate, you're just pulling this out of your ass. Like,
yeah, why does Canton, and it was Canton, wasn't it?
It was, Anthony Simon Canton, yeah.
Yeah. Why his character knows so much about these fish? Everything about his character is weird. Like, first off, I can't get over just how much he looks like a cut-price Nick Nolte. It's at one point, because I know who that actor is, Anthony Held, but I had enough doubt in my head that I actually checked IMDb. I'm like...
Yeah, and his IMDb is Nick Nolte.
Is it? Well, I was just like, it can't be Nick Nolte. It's not Nick Nolte. I'll just double-check to make sure it's not Nick Nolte. They look so similar. But everything about him in this film is weird. Like the fact that he knows about these aliens is just not aliens, sea monsters, whatever you want to call them. The fact that he goes full Burke at the end. There are so many kind of like similarities with aliens. The only difference is with Burke in Aliens, you know why he's trying to screw everyone over. In this, it's never really clear why he wants everyone else to die and he wants to run off on his own. He's a very, very strange character.
No, it's not unclear at all. It's greed, isn't it? There's to be no witnesses to the destruction of the boat because he can claim the insurance. Now, how he thinks he's going to get out of there, out of the middle of nowhere, I don't know. That's where his entire plan comes to. Because after these guys fuck up, well, they didn't really fuck up. This monster happened. And after they realize they can't call for help or anything, he's not surviving. but he is doing everything he can to try and just get, I don't know, another couple of minutes of air, I guess, before he's fucked up. So
yeah, he's just
every choice he's making is a
Yeah.
bad choice.
Mhm.
I mean, I do want to ask, how do you feel about Kevin J. O'Connor as Joey Pantucci? Because I fucking love him in this. I do.
Ooh,
I love him.
Love's a strong word.
No, I love him.
Just like pretty much everyone else in this movie, other than maybe Famke Janssen, and I mean, part of that is just because she was an absolute smoke show in '98. But she's great. Like, you know, she's got the whole femme fatale thing. She's playing more for laughs, and maybe it's because of the whole what was her name? Honor Top from Goldeneye. That I've got the whole femme fatale thing in my head. But she's got that look. I think she's great. Everyone else, there's always a caveat with just about everyone, and it is exactly the same with him. And let's be clear, he's basically playing a very similar character to what he does subsequently in Van Helsing and The Mummy. And
See, I don't think he is, though, is he? Because in the other ones, he's playing a sleazy, is doing anything to survive.
Yeah,
but in this one, he is basically just your run-of-the-mill second, like he's your fiddle. He's the guy.
There are there's two different kind of things with him, I suppose. It's like, on the one hand, you're talking about him from a plot device. Like, you know, of course, his character in this is nothing like Igor from, say, Van Helsing. But the other side of this is, what is he really? He's comic relief. Like, he is hardcore comic relief. Like, in fairness, he gets a lot of the best lines in this movie. Like, one of my favorite lines, what the hell does he say? Can you just get asthma, or do you have to be born with it? I thought that was just like an absolute killer line. But you have to put up with his shtick and his voice. His voice in particular.
Oh, mate, you say put up with it. I love it. I think he's great in it. And aside from the fact that he does get, I'm not a fan of shouty acting. Mm-hmm. So when he gets a bit shouty and screamy, that's when it goes.
That's what I mean. And he throughout, and I'm talking about all of the films he's in with Stephen Sommers, he always tiptoes that line between being funny and annoying. And he can be funny, but he can also cross the line into annoying territory. And he does so in this. But one thing he always is memorable. And he is in this as well.
He did get over quickly, mind, the loss of his missus. Super quick. And let's be clear, I'm not buying into that relationship one fucking bit. Like him and was it Joey and Layla, isn't it? Layla. Like, or if you want to quote Billy, chick with the muscles. She didn't even have muscles. No. She didn't look muscly at all. It was very strange. Top on. Oh, Billy. I mean, it just didn't work. I mean, one of my biggest issues with this film are the bandits themselves. I mean, we'll get to that in a minute, but they are an eclectic bunch. But before we do, I just wanted to add, like, when I watched this film, when I was trying to decide how I actually feel about it, and I'm still not 100% sure on how I exactly feel about it, so much of it is dependent on just how knowing everyone involved is. Like, do you think Stephen Sommers is making like an action adventure film, or does he know that he's making a really ludicrous B movie? Because there's some poor direction in this film, poor acting, poor writing, but it feels just knowingly dumb enough that it's actually fun. But I can't tell just how in on the joke everyone is here. Well, it feels like some people are more than others, I guess. One of the major issues was none of them knew what the monster was going to look like for a start, because that ran completely over budget, because they were just struggling. So nobody knew what exactly they were being attacked by. So trying to act against that is... Well, that's the problem for most of the films. It's just tentacles. But that's one of the things, like, you know, when I look back, I kind of decided on it's basically a bad blockbuster, but it's a kind of great B movie. It's like the strength of the film is like True Lies, which we recorded last week. The magic is how the movie like successfully juggles tone and genre while never allowing them to clash. Like, this movie is a comedy, it's an adventure movie, it's a classic disaster movie, and a B-level monster movie all at the same time. It doesn't do any of these things like brilliantly, I don't think, but it does them all pretty well. No, I disagree. It does most of them, but like, I get the CGI is rough. I do get that, but the acting, the action, I think is brilliant, right? To the point where it's a double feature. This and Tremors, like, they go together. Like, Tremors is definitely more knowing, though. With this, I don't think it's as good as Tremors. Put it this way, but I will say, what this film, like, when I look back on the tone, and this is stepping on the video game section a bit here, but this really is what a Resident Evil movie should have been.
like, you know, you think about they've tried different things. They did the TV show recently and they went darker. The films got more and more ludicrous in terms of like actual horror, but alongside not just comedy, but as I mentioned, like genuine adventure. That's what like the Resident Evil games are. I'm like, why the fuck didn't they give Resident Evils to Stephen Sommers? I genuinely think he could have done a great job. And like I said, when I kind of got myself into that mindset, almost like this is like a movie version of like Resident Evil, all of a sudden the slightly dopey dialogue, the ridiculously over-the-top characters, it all starts to make sense a bit more. I'm still not sure Treat Williams as a leading man makes sense.
Yeah, no, I disagree.
Well, no, I will what's the word? Meet you halfway and say I would not remove Treat Williams from this film at all. I would just prefer him as one of the bandits. I think he'd make a great bandit and then bring in Brendan Fraser as the leading man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be fair, there are better actors who can play that role. But for what he did on this film, I think he's great. I honestly do. Mm-hmm. I do have a problem with how inept the super band of robbers are.
Oh, like again, is that when he created this, it's like these guys are going to be dumb as shit. Because if that was the plan, and not just that, they're so horrendously horrible. Was that on purpose so that when they get killed off, it's just easier to cheer, basically?
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? Because 1998 as well. You watch this film now in 2023, and you see like Djimon Hounsou, and you think, fucking hell, Djimon Hounsou. Forgetting that this is one of his first films. So when he gets taken out with an axe to the head straight away.
Came out right. Again, you've seen this film I'd never seen this film before, literally 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I was a little concerned at the start. You know, issues with tone and stuff aside, I was like, man, the kills are pretty bland when you don't really know what's killing them.
Yeah.
It's like people being pulled off screen and then a bit of blood. And I was like, oh, this is they're gonna have to do better than this for to keep my attention. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, Djimon Hounsou takes that goddamn axe to the head, and it like really kind of like, holy shit, it's so violent. And from that point on, this film kind of goes batshit crazy.
It's funny as well because it's like his little line, money, money, money. Like he says,
you have so many good actors doing terrible stuff. Like Jason Flemyng as Mulligan. Jason Flemyng is a genuinely good actor.
He is
fucking
bad
horrible in this film.
Yeah, he is bad.
So bad.
But so is
well, the cool thing is then when he does get killed, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I'm so glad that motherfucker got killed, despite the fact that it's a horrendous way to go.
I think one of the worst ones is Cliff Curtis as Mamuli. Like he did not seem to be the guy you get and go, mate, all you want to do is shag. Like of all the it shouldn't have been him. Like his lines, like I'll stay with her. I haven't done Korea. Yeah, and his one character trait, and this is something you could maybe get away with in the 90s, which you wouldn't get away with now, is like rapey. Like that's his only character trait is that he's a bit rapey. And again, this is a good actor. Like he's gone. He's a very good actor. He was
in Avatar recently, wasn't he?
I don't know because I haven't watched it.
Of course, yeah.
But he was good in Doctor Sleep.
Yeah. He was good.
He was great in Doctor Sleep. He was in. I haven't seen, and I will not watch Avatar, but I watched the Meg, and he was in that. And he's going to be in the Meg 2 as well.
Well, there's a lot of good actors slumming it in this film, but
although is this where they learned their craft? Because what you got to think of is 1998.
Their craft.
You know what I mean? Like
I know.
So this is where they realized not to do things like that again. But
one of my favorite actually was because I couldn't remember where he was from. You know, when you see that dude like Clifton Powell as Mason, I was like, "Fuck, man, what do I know him from?" And he's always shouting. I'm like, I know I've seen him in a bunch of things, but I had this specific role. No, man, he was Pinky in Next Friday.
Oh, was he?
Say another word and this shit is over. And I ain't playing. And he was saying that stuff. And I was like, I can imagine him literally saying it in this movie. But yeah, they're like, in terms of establishing them as both horrible but also quite inept, is when they just beat the shit out of Joey. You think usually these guys are like professional, but instead they're just like a bunch of bullies in the schoolyard when they just kick the shit out of him. It's such an odd scene. But again, if you want to establish that these guys are all pieces of shit and you're ostensibly going to be happy when they die, mission accomplished.
They try when they were trying to steal from like other action films. Like this obviously is Aliens as well and things like that. When they took the gun out, right, and it's not just like the pulse rifle, it's the M1L1 triple pulse rifle.
which always looks like it's missing ammunition.
Yeah, well, he said. Did I mishear him, or did he say like he had 1,000 round capacity mag?
I wouldn't be surprised. They just pull the trigger and shoot forever in this film.
I know,
but rarely with any success.
I loved it as well, right? Because you got like T-Ray, who was Kano in the original Mortal Kombat film.
Oh yeah, he's the worst of the bunch. He's genuinely quite bad.
Well, he gets fucked pretty much. Like his death is off screen. He gets pulled under, and the reason why, like, where they turn on, let's sow some seeds that it may have been Treat Williams to do this. The other guy staring at women's tits on a picture board. Like, it just like some. I do agree. Some of the choices, or a lot of the choices in this film, but I still think it's brilliant. I still think it's great.
It's weird because, as you say, it does borrow from a lot of films. Like it borrows there's a bit of Aliens, there's a bit of Poseidon Adventure, Jaws, Godzilla. I guess Speed 2 for it's definitely got a bit of that going
Another one, Alien Resurrection, the whole
the underwater bit is very Alien Resurrection for sure. It's just never as good as any of them. I mean, I know when it was released, it got slaughtered for a lack of originality. I think that's actually a little bit unfair because most sci-fi, especially horror, tends to borrow pretty liberally from other sources. Like even the greats do, even Aliens borrowed from elsewhere. But as I said, when you borrow so liberally and so obviously from the genre greats, you're inviting unfavorable comparisons. And as much fun as this film can be, it's just not as good as its inspirations. That's the big problem with it. And the reason it probably hasn't lived on so strongly in the memory, or maybe hasn't, didn't do so well in the box office. I know some people, yourself included, have a very soft spot for this film. And I can understand that, especially if you'd watched it when it was released back in the 98, 99. Now, as much as I can enjoy a lot of what this film does, you do have to get over the CG barrier. There's just it's a big issue with this film.
I've never seen a bigger Chekhov's gun trope than I had in this one. How many times did they show a shotgun hanging on the back of his chair in the ship? It showed it about 3 or 4 times, and then he goes in the ship because he's going with them. And you think, so they showed the gun, but they're not going to use it? No. That's the gun that takes out the monster at the end. And the gun that opens the doors of the... It's a magic gun, and it's also clearly, in case you didn't get it, a stand-in for his dick.
I mean, how sexy was the cock it scene? How to turn a normal action scene into something of a porn parody, cock it. And they do that like 3 times. I'm like, they're trying to build up some kind of sexual tension between the two of them, which might not exist because Treat Williams looks like her dad. But, if you're going to do it, cock it is a pretty brazen way to go about your business.
Couldn't they have picked, in that cock it scene as well, couldn't they have picked a more, I guess, masculine jet ski? Because
it's such a 90s jet ski.
It is bright yellow. It is tiny, especially when there's 2 of them on there. It just looks like they borrowed it from like Ken and Barbie's dream house or something.
It really does. But it was a good thing that Treat Williams' character, is it Finnegan? That's his name, isn't it?
Finnegan, yeah.
It just so happens to be a pro jet skier. Because he's not just riding a jet ski. Again, totally lends itself to that whole Resident Evil thing. I can totally imagine Leon in one of the Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil 3, 4, whatever, jumping on a jet ski and just doing this shit. And that's all I kept thinking. I was like, dude, man, Stephen Summers should be making Resident Evil films. And that's not me saying Stephen Summers is a particularly good director, because he's not.
No.
But he knows how to make a certain style of film. And that is another one of those things. Like, I was looking back over his IMDb. This is probably his second best movie. It's quite a bizarre one because it flopped, but it also got him the Mummy job, surely, because I
would have thought so, because any film before that, it's just he hasn't done a lot, has he, in regards to...
Not before the Mummy. I think basically it was, back then it was still a bit of a specialist subject. And as much as we can kind of criticize the CG, it would have been on a slightly lower budget. And it still would have been relatively impressive back in 1998. And obviously they're like, well, he's used to working with CG. He's used to, again, the fact that, sure, it's horror, but there's the adventure element to it. And that lends itself very well to the Mummy. And it certainly did. That film's fantastic. And it's amazing the difference what a year and some additional budget can make, because the CG in that film has held up so much better than it has in this film. But I can imagine it was a somewhat unique skill set back in 1998. So it probably made sense for him to get the Mummy. The only thing is, I was like, is the Mummy an outlier in his CV? Because when you look at his other films, there's The Mummy, The Mummy Returns, Van Helsing, G.I. Joe, Rise of Cobra, and this. And suddenly I'm like, most of the films he's made have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
Other than
It's kind of
The Mummy.
kind of left one off, and the only reason I mention it is because I was actually a fan of that as well from 2013. Odd Thomas with Anton Yelchin.
Oh, that was the more recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, that I thought he did a good job with that.
That was quite good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
I thought it was
the
a good
other thing
film.
is they've all got a similar tone, those other films. When I'm talking about those big, huge blockbusters
Yeah.
he's done, that kind of combination of horror, action, comedy, obviously less horror in Rise of Cobra, but certainly with the other films. And he's got his shtick, and he's obviously not too bad at it. But yeah, other than The Mummy, I don't think he's nailed it, should we say, with any of them.
It's funny though because this is still Deep Rising on IMDb is a 6.1 rating.
I get it. I get
Which
it.
is, yeah.
I think it's one of those films, like critically, I'm not surprised that it was destroyed because it is unbelievably derivative. There's just no two ways about it. Like,
Yeah.
But it's derivative in quite a fun way. If you're going to be derivative of great films, and it is. But I can see why, again, especially back in like the late 90s, if you watch this film, you're like, man, this is ticking a lot of boxes for me. There's great death sequences, there's great action, there's some great one-liners, and most of the characters, even if they are horrendous assholes, are pretty goddamn memorable.
Well,
and it's one of the underrated, just want to get this off my chest, it's one of the underrated like talents of films like this. Like it's something which is totally overlooked, is making the characters memorable enough so that you remember their deaths.
Yeah.
You have so many films, whether it be horror or whatever, where you're like, okay, a big part of this film is going to be killing off half the cast. And of course, that's part of this film. Excuse me. And so many of those films, they just die and you don't give a shit. At least by the time the characters die in this film, you know who they all are. They've all had just enough of a moment that I'm like, I'm glad he's dead. I'm glad he's dead, you know? The only one I would say maybe doesn't have so much to do is Billy, but that is offset by the fact that he has one of the most memorable and gruesome death scenes I've ever seen.
It's up there with the guy from RoboCop, isn't it?
That's exactly what I had down in my notes. I was like, it's right up there with...
I mean, to be fair, Billy's dining on that mind because that's his IMDb picture.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he hasn't done much since then.
But that is...
You're talking about the bad guys, right? What do you feel about Hanover?
Hanover.
West Study, the quote-unquote leader of the whole operation.
It's strange. Again, like the film itself, I can't tell how in he is on his own performance. If he's like, I'm going for this, like this is a big B-movie performance, or whether it's just a quite bad performance. I'm not sure if I necessarily buy him as the leader, but the one thing he does have is an absolutely fantastic voice. So if nothing else, I quite like listening to him talk. But other than Billy, the one thing he definitively has is one of cinema's great death scenes again. I was like, how can you have Billy's death in this film, which is so... What do they say? Oh, they said something very specific. They drink you alive.
They drink you alive, yeah.
God damn, that is a fucking horrid description.
And you see it, like...
That is nasty.
When he gets spat out and he is just like... he's half that. Oh, yeah, it is absolutely.
It is like, what's the name of the actor? Paul McCrane in RoboCop, where he's like half melted. He's like, kill me. And they run him over and it's gross. It's not quite as good as that, but it's pretty fucking close.
Yeah.
But as you said, Hanover at the end is such a great, and again, I think it sums up the strengths of Stephen Sommers, where he's able to combine genuine comedy with genuine horror in the same moments, and they feel natural next to each other. Like, he's getting eaten in a legitimately horrific way. But because of what they do with the whole bullet thing with Joey is so fucking clever, that sequence.
It was because Dave mentioned it to you last week. I can't remember whether he mentioned it on or off pod. But he said that's basically all he remembers from that film. And he actually said he thinks if you didn't like this film, you'll actually like that. I think he called it, to be fair. But 100%. He just uses his one bullet to shoot the guy. And I love her as well because he shoots at Joey, misses Joey. And Joey just turns around to him and goes, "You asshole!"
like like I said, that's the thing with Joey. Like him in all these films, he so walks that line. Every time I think I've kind of had a titsful of him, he comes back with a great line. And he does feel like a proper natural comic. And maybe because I don't know him as a comic, I don't know if he does stand-up or whatever, but it's like he feels like he belongs in this world again, despite the fact that he's got it all turned up to 11, you know? But I think that's the nature of Stephen Sommers' films. And the reason he works in The Mummy and stuff, it's or maybe the reason that the Tom Cruise Mummy film didn't work. I'm sure you didn't watch because you hate Tom Cruise. Why would you pick that? Although that would be a Rob thing to do.
I have seen.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
I have seen The Mummy.
You're such a dick. All the fucking great Tom Cruise films you just refuse to see, but you watch The Mummy. That almost feels like a spite move. Like, fuck you, Tom Cruise. I'm going to watch that film.
You know the reason why I watched it? Because everybody said it was shit, and I'm like, yes, finally, everyone's agreeing with me. So I watched the shit Tom Cruise film.
That's weird, because I do get that kind of grief, but it's a completely different reason. Like, if people tell me a film or a video game is shit, I get kind of obsessed with the idea. Not like if like some B movie straight to TV nonsense is shit. Like I don't care about that. But if like something where a lot of talent is involved and a lot of money has gone into it, I get this kind of like, oh, how have they managed to fuck this up so bad? So I did it with The Mummy. I was like, oh, I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. I almost don't want to watch this because I know it's supposed to be bad. But I was like, I have to find out why it's bad. And I watched 20 minutes of it, and it's not the CG, it's not the action, it's the tone. They get the tone. It's just weird. And Stephen Sommers is able to get that tone right of combining action, horror, and comedy. And as you find out when you watch a film like The Mummy, and I'm talking about the Tom Cruise Mummy here, if you get that tone wrong, it feels horrible, like it did in that film.
Yeah.
So whatever my criticisms are of Stephen Sommers as a director, and there are plenty, he's able to combine those in a very.
I mean, to be fair, mind when you let your actor take over and do most of control the film, which is what happened with Tom Cruise's Mummy, like. He took over, and was his decisions. I'm not getting into the why Tom Cruise is shit because I'll be here forever. But it's and that's why. But in this one, Deep Rising, Stephen Sommers does have the helm for most of this film, and you can clearly see it. And you can,
I mean, he's the writer and the director.
You can see him move to 1999's Mummy as well, especially like when you say. I mean, I do agree that Joey in this and Benny in The Mummy, they're pretty much the same character, but on different sides of the spectrum, as it were. Like the one is comedy relief because he's the sidekick, the other one's comedy relief because he's doing anything.
The thing with his character, it almost doesn't matter who he plays because he's there to serve the role of comic relief, regardless of what he's doing from a plot device. Like if he was the bad guy in this film, if he was, the fucking lead, anything, it wouldn't matter because he would still be like the comic relief on the side of it. So he just feels like the same character. He basically gives the same performance in all three of those films, just with a different plot device attached to his name.
What do you think of Treat Williams or Finnegan's catchphrase?
Now what? Let me refer you to the start of the podcast when I said Treat Williams is dadsy as fuck. That is such a dadsy catchphrase. It's ridiculous. Oh, now what? Again, I just want to stress, I like Treat Williams in this film, but it's another one of those reasons why I just don't buy him as the leading man. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Me and my wife were talking about the catchphrase, now what? And she said, oh, it's close to your one, mind. I said, okay, I've got a catchphrase. If I said, yeah, you got a catchphrase. If anything goes wrong, you go, really? So, apparently, if I was in Treat Williams' position and something happened, I would just turn around and go, really?
Yeah, the thing is, it seems like a reasonable response. And maybe if it was coming from a more kind of like classically heroic actor, it would land a bit better. But it all kind of lends itself to this whole idea in my head that he's just too dadsy for the role. And he played that role. Was it The Substitute?
Yeah.
And I know he's tough, but he does look a little bit like a substitute teacher.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because he took over that role from Tom Berenger.
Did he really?
Yeah, Tom Berenger was the original substitute.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And then he did 3 straight-to-DVD sequels. Yes, I've seen them.
I've seen a bit of the second one, and there are a couple of scenes now which are okay. But I also checked the Rotten Tomato score, 0%.
Oh yeah. I mean, come on. But I don't know where it is. I like a film like that. I've seen the Substitute sequels probably more than I've seen.
It's weird. We're both glutton for punishment in very different ways. You seem to take like a genuine joy out of watching these like direct to DVDs, whereas I have this obsession with playing or watching kind of like big budget movies which have just gone to shit. I'm just like I said, like Gods of Egypt was, I think I mentioned before on this podcast. I'd heard that it was just the worst, but I was like, I have to watch at least some of it. I was like, how can you spend that much money and have that much talent on screen and it be that bad? And it is a true train wreck. It was the same with
How far
Cats.
did you get through Gods of Egypt?
About 30 minutes.
Oh no, I finished it.
Oh, of course you did. Of course you did. I did the same with Cats. I was like, I've seen Cats the stage play, and I don't like the stage play.
Yeah.
But I was like, it was shit on so much, the movie, and it felt like, it was like a home run. Sugar's going to make so much money. And I watched it, and it is just like, you cannot believe the choices that they made. All this talent involved. Like, how did they do it? But, this isn't the case here.
I've never seen Cats. I never will see Cats. And even before I knew that everyone hated it, before it came out, I knew it was going to be shit because it had James Corden in it. So
I do find James Corden rough on screen. There's no two ways about it. But I wouldn't like not watch a film because he had a small role if the film was good. I would just kind of grin and bear it. But don't get me wrong, he's bad in it, but he's not the problem with that film. There's so many other problems. And it's nothing to do with whether you like Cats or not. Because I like I said, I don't like Cats. But I was just like, as a movie, it's a fucking horror show. And I just find it oddly compelling when these things happen.
I mean, coming from a man that owns 2 cats, to just shout out, I don't like cats, bless him.
Dude, like the stage show, I don't get it. It's a weird.
I never have. I never will watch it.
I took my wife to see it. I paid for because it was I think it was a birthday or something, and we paid for 3rd row seats. So I was like, we're all in on this. And I was like, I like cats, as in my cats. I was like, and I like going to the theater. I was like, this should be a solid bet. I mean, it's been running on Broadway for God knows how many fucking decades. And I watched it, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? Other than a couple of decent songs, that show just it's like a weird fever dream, but not in a good way. Anyway, we've kind of gone off piece.
Yeah, bringing it back to Deep Rising, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you know at the end, did the monster use a tentacle to actually give Treat Williams a right hook?
It looked like it. It really did. At this point, though, I was a little bit caught up on for most of the film, the CG is bad. When they go all out with the big monster at the end, it is legitimately Escape from LA bad.
Yeah. Even to the point
distracting.
When it explodes, after it gets shot in the eye and it explodes, even the flames and all that, they're just... Do you know what they felt like? Lawnmower Man. They felt like Lawnmower Man flames. It just... But I just couldn't believe they just had... It was almost as bad. I'm pretty sure it was in Anaconda as well, where the snake uses half of its body to deliver some sort of weird gut punch. I'm sure that happened. It's really weird when they do things they make choices like that, and you think, what the fuck was that about?
Well, like I said, maybe I would have been paying more attention to the fine details if I could have got over the visuals. But it's one of the. It was the same with Blade. Blade had the same problem at the end of that film.
Yeah,
and it is just an issue with a lot of mid to late 90s CG. Unless there was a lot of budget involved. The best examples, and we've said it loads of times on this podcast, you could do good CG in the 90s, but it was usually down to a smart implementation of both CG and physical effects. This film leaned into the CG aspects far too much. This film would have been so much better if it had done as much as it could with physical effects and then been okay, we can't achieve this without CG, and then added the CG on top, because there's some good stuff in this film, and you can see them. This wasn't a cheap film to make, and you can see the money up on screen. That opening sequence when what is it, a pleasure ship, whatever he calls it, the floating casino, and the shot goes from outside and goes up into the ship, and obviously huge number of extras. I was like, wow, that's an impressive shot. You can see where the money is, but then they spent the rest of the budget on some. Again, I don't think the CG was necessarily terrible in the mid 1998, but it's rough now. And
I was all right with the tentacles. The way the tentacles were used for the CG, I was all right with them. They look great. Even when they're crushing the sides of the ship and things how they're able to get in a hallway and crush the hallway.
Well, that was amazing, though.
But
because that was nearly all physical, though. That was one of my.
But no. What I'm saying, I was all right with all those tentacles when you saw them. It was fine. When you get to the end, that you should never have seen the monster. What you should have had was more tentacles from, because it would have been dark then, is wrap around the whole ship and start pulling the ship into the water.
Yeah.
I think that would have been more menacing than having to have this one-on-one between Treat Williams and
It was a terrible decision.
The monster, and then shooting him in his, because that poor fucking monster had cataracts anyway. So
it did look. His eyes were rather milky beforehand.
Yeah. So why
but no, they should have kept it to, like you said, instead of him having some bizarro one-on-one showdown with this big monster, it should have been the monster destroys the ship and he needs to escape and blow it up or something like that. That would have worked much better.
I think that would have worked better. To have it just bring it down and then and then comes with that then is these weird torpedoes that I guess they were going to use to sink the ship anyway. That was their plan.
Yeah, that was their plan.
Yeah. So there was, they were going to put the people in the lifeboats and then sink the ship.
Well, and the thing is as well that commitment to CG is made all the more disappointing when the film does go for the more practical effects. It's just how good it looks and how effective it is. As I said at the start, I was a little bit concerned that the deaths were going to be maybe a bit bland, and then all of a sudden you get the Djimon Hounsou axe to the head, you get Billy being like eaten alive, which I know uses CG but does it quite well. But one of my favorite sequences is the aforementioned scene in the hallway where you have all the bodies and they've already been digested. Yeah. And you can see those bits aren't CG. It's skeletons in the hallway. And the way they crush the walls and the door, I was like, this scene looks, it's kind of, again, to bring it back to Resident Evil, it reminded me of the Resident Evil sequence where the lasers come through the room. Only this is like the room is being crushed and it's so much more effective.
But if they're on a ship, how are they crushing the walls?
It doesn't matter. It just looks.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
No, I know what you mean. If you stop and think about it, it doesn't make any sense.
I just didn't understand how they were getting on a ship in the middle. Like, there's no hallway. I didn't know. I couldn't understand how they were managing to crush the ship.
That is a very Rob way to look at a scene, though. It's like I don't understand the fundamental physics behind this scene. I just don't get it. Yeah. But physics aside, it looked cool.
Oh yeah, I'm not taking that away from it. It looked cool. Like when they got to, I don't know, because you had that hallway and they had like some of the digested bodies and stuff. But then when they got to what was probably the main feeding ground, and it was just littered with that looked great. I mean, that looked great, gory as hell. But
every time they build up that sense of peril, and there are moments of true horror in this film, it's just constantly undermined by the bad CG, which is just around the corner. Which, as I said, is a bit of a shame. And it's not just this film; it's the nature of 90s CG. It's aged like 32-bit video games, which obviously came in around the same time. If you go back, I always think that 16-bit video games are very much the practical effects of the late 80s. So it's like 16-bit graphics were almost like 2D graphics perfected in the same way that late 80s practical effects were practical effects perfected to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get CG and 32-bit graphics come at the same time. And this is them kind of learning their way. And this is just one of the films that overdid it and was too reliant upon it, which, again, is a bit of a shame. But then, the Mummy used loads and it looks fucking awesome. I don't know.
We need to get you away from CG because you keep falling back into the fucking CG.
Well, it was just like, I can't help it. It was just one of my problems.
Do you know you gave Treat Williams the dad vibes? I think the so much so, not like kissing his daughter's friend or anything like that. It was wrapping the shirt around his waist more than once.
Oh, dude, that was just part of the look. As soon as that shirt went around the waist, I was like, oh my God, that is so your mate's dad at a party trying to look cool. I'm just like, I appreciate we're in that age range now, but you have to be a bit more self-aware. He's clearly trying to be cool, like wrapping his check shirt around his waist. I'm like, and especially in 1998, it would have been all the more lame because it would have felt like he's trying to be a bit grunge, like 6 years after it's kind of disappeared. Yeah, it's a tough look, man.
We brushed over Hanover a little bit. I wanted to bring something up. What did you think about his? Like, he's trying to be a military leader, but feels like a guy who just got all his military training off the TV. Like, it was really weird. Like, I don't know, just the way he was acting and the things he was doing and things like that. It was like, is this guy actually? Does he have a military background, or is he just selling his military background? Because
there's nothing to suggest that he's a good leader.
Although it looked wrong, although it was sold that he's meant to be a military leader, but you don't think he is. It's just like he has some sort of connections because he's able to get those, what were they, M1L1 pulse rifles.
Yeah,
which,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, and all of these guys were apparently meant to be some sort of special forces team. Just they were rough.
Yeah, they just weren't convincing. Like, but again, was that intentional? Was that part of the fun? So that, like I said,
Yeah.
when they get killed off and they do dumb things, you're like, well, yeah, they're all idiots. But at the start of the film, that is the big question when you're just like, wait, how are these guys supposed to be like this like badass unit of, you always think of like, I know they're bad guys. You think of Predator or whatever.
Yeah.
You bring in this group to do like a specialist job. I'm like, they're all like fucking infants. This is ridiculous.
Remind me, because I can't remember. I'm trying to rack my brain now. You just said about the guy, was it Clifton Powell from Next Friday? How did he die?
How did he die? Fuck, how did he die?
I can't remember.
There's the bit when he has that. Oh shit! What the fuck? I just messed up on my notes. He did have that one great line where where it's like all the way through he's like really tough.
Yeah.
But then when they're just about to go, it was underwater. It was underwater. He gets.
He was the one who got to. Okay,
yeah. Because he's like, I want to sound like a pussy, but this shit is really starting to freak me out, man. And it's like, as soon as he said that line, I'm like, he's going to be dead in like 5 minutes. And yeah, he wasn't keen on getting in the water, and he duly died moments later.
How did you feel about the fact that they just didn't want to kill off Joey as well? Like, even towards the end, you think he's dead, and all of a sudden he's just floating onto that island on a surfboard.
I just think it comes back to the whole Famke Janssen, Treat Williams thing. Like, we cannot have these guys just on a beach together making out. It's going to be too weird. But the other thing, and one of the biggest questions for this film is, what were they implying at the end that they had landed on Skull Island?
I don't know if they were implying Skull Island. Maybe
they had a volcano. It looked like fucking, like,
yeah.
It looked like King Kong coming at them.
I
thought it was implicit. I thought it was like they are clearly suggesting the whole now what is, we have landed on Skull Island. And I think that is the reason Joey survives, as ludicrous as it is basically, if this film's a hit, am I going to get away with doing King Kong next?
Yeah.
And I can have Treat Williams, Famke Janssen, and I can't remember his real name, Joey come back.
Kevin J. O'Connor.
Kevin J. O'Connor, my apologies. So that's all I can assume. They brought him back just in case this works out.
I didn't think it was King Kong. I just thought it was just your generic jungle monster, because you had your generic fish monster. Do you know? So whether or not
maybe.
But I mean, to be fair, I'm probably one of the only ones who would like to have seen a sequel to it. Like, I always wish they did a sequel to it. We haven't really mentioned. You mentioned it briefly that she was doing okay, but we haven't really mentioned Famke Janssen in this. Who?
There's a lot of actors in it. There's a lot of people
smoking in it. Yeah, but we haven't mentioned mainly the only female, because bless her cotton socks, but Joey's missus, chick with the muscles, gets taken out pretty quickly.
It's weird because she actually takes a while to get killed off, but she's kind of taken off screen, isn't she? And then she even kind of dies off screen. She just kind of disappears. Famke Janssen for most of them is the only female, but she is great because you have all this kind of male gay stuff going on, as you did in 90s cinema, and of course with our one particularly rapey character. But she deals with it so well. She has like a confidence in herself, and again, she's playing it surprisingly comic.
Yeah,
and she's really good. But she is one of the few, as I said, for all my criticisms of Treat Williams, those are the two people in the film who seem to have that wry smile, like they know the kind of film that they're in. And as much as I find it weird because I just don't buy them in a relationship, they do have chemistry. I'm not sure if it's kind of lovers chemistry so much as like a dad-daughter kind of chemistry, but the chemistry's there nonetheless.
It's that weird... It's that weird way we've fallen in love because of a dramatic situation thing, isn't it? You see it so many times in these films. Yeah, speed and things like that. But I thought she was great in this film. And
I think...
I mean, as much as you go in dad and daughter and stuff like that, I bought them. I thought, they'll end up like a nice couple.
Oh, I didn't buy them as a couple. I like them on screen together. But when she kisses him at the end, I'm just like, it doesn't feel like it comes out of the blue necessarily, because as you said, it's been built up throughout the film. But I'm just like, they just don't look right together at all. And as I said, even he looks shocked at it, to be honest. But yeah, there were some other very weird choices. Like, again, to age the film, there's they seem to be using an incessant obsession with CDs as a visual identifier for cutting edge technology. There's the bit with like the countdown when they're about to be attacked by the sea monster. That's like the longest countdown of all time. He starts at like 15. It reminded me of the dude getting run over by the steamroller in Austin Powers.
Yeah,
he's like, no.
The other one I felt like that was the No. Because I had the same steamroller moment, but at a different point in the film. It was Treat Williams's boat going very, very slowly to crash into the other boat. It was super slow. Even when you had Anthony Heald, who was playing Simon Canton, his screams of no as he's going into the... And basically, it would have just touched it. It would have just kissed it. I don't get how it would have exploded.
Yeah. Well, as I said, there are a bunch of weird choices. It's the same with the score. The score is super schizophrenic in this film. It's like it's got classic monster movie stuff at the start, but then it's just all over the place. It sounds like Star Trek at times. And suddenly it feels like an old-fashioned horror film. And maybe it speaks to the combined genres that exist within the film. But like I said, while the genres within the film seem to gel, they don't with the score. The score keeps reminding you that this is a different kind of film to what you were watching 10 minutes ago. Like when they're on the boat, it feels like an adventure film. Then suddenly, on Treat Williams' speedboat or whatever the hell it is, that is that soundtrack, the score for those sequences feels like it's from a completely different movie to the rest of it. So I don't think anything is particularly bad in and of itself. It just doesn't meld with the rest of the film very successfully, I don't think.
What are they as well? Are they pirates or are they just sea couriers? Treat Williams and his two friends.
I think they're basically trying to sell them off as like maybe the Han Solo of the sea, like kind of like living on the edge, or maybe the brown coats from Serenity.
Yeah,
it's like they're living just on the edge. They'll do just enough for them, but they won't always do bad things. You could argue that it's morally corrupt to like just not ask any questions, but at the same time, if you don't ask any questions, you don't know what they're doing, you can all pretend that we're still the good guys kind of thing. So I think they are very much of the brown coats Star Wars but on the sea equivalent, I suppose. So pirates, but nice pirates. Let's go with that.
If the cash is there, we do not care.
Exactly. I think that's a pretty good place to end on the film. Do you want to move on to what do we do next usually? Favorite scenes?
Yeah, we could do
favorite scenes. I don't know why I made that plural. We just do one favorite scene.
Well, I'll do all my favorite scenes if you want.
No. That'll just be the film. That'd be ridiculous. I think I've already mentioned mine, but it really is the hallway sequence. The fact that it goes so full. I know you have issues with the physics of how that hallway is being crushed, but it just looks great. And that's what I wish more of the film was. Practical effects, proper horror. I thought, but it still maintained the comedy in that sequence as well. So I thought that was like the movie at its best for sure.
For me, it was the shocking death of Djimon Hounsou. You're not really expecting
that is a close second.
Yeah,
that
you're
really
not expecting it. You just expect like this guy's like, oh, you saved my job for me, and you're like, oh, I thought you like blowing stuff up, and I do, and you go, money. He gets shot, hit in the head because you're not expecting all of a sudden this badass guy with all these weapons and stuff to just get his fucking head split into two.
And by Canton as well.
I know.
It's like the only thing I could think of a comparison with Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, Deep Blue Sea?
Yeah.
With that.
I was
trying to do the rap. Deepest, bluest. My head's just like a shark fin. And I was like, so it was Deep Blue Sea.
But he's given his big dramatic "we're going to survive" scene.
Yeah. Obviously, that one's still the high watermark, no pun intended. But he gets killed by the shark. So there's almost still an element of like, oh, well, at least he's been killed by the shark. In this, he doesn't get killed by the monster or another rebel or Treat Williams. He gets killed by like the cowardly dude who just accidentally sticks a fucking axe in his head.
It's that as well, because he gets taken out by that dude, and then the other poor three survivors behind Canton just all of a sudden just get mowed down like fuck. You don't expect any of it. So
it's a lot of violence very quickly.
And you're expecting a lot of violence. You're expecting deaths from
not like that though.
No, but that's what I mean. You're expecting them from the monster and things like that. And that's why I would say that it kind of it subverts what you're expecting of a film like this all of a sudden. So
and for me, and again, I know it's hard for you to judge in the same way because you watched it so long ago. But for me, I was, like I said, up until that point, I was concerned that it was going to be a bit bland. I was like, oh, is this going to be a little bit kind of PG-13 with the kills? And just as I was thinking that, then the axe thing happened. I was like, oh, no, we're getting some proper violence. And that really is the turning point for the film. Up until then, it could almost feel like a kind of PG-13 adventure film with a bit of violence, and then suddenly you get that axe in the head, which visually and just really does come out of nowhere. The rest of them's like, all right, we're really going to swing for the fences from now on.
Yeah. No, cool.
In terms of loves and hates, I'll go with the loves first.
Yeah.
Number one, that it really swings for the fences in the second half with the body horror and B-movie antics. As I said, it really does start with that axe in the head. And the fact that Billy's death truly is horrific. Whatever you, like you said, like even if you don't enjoy this film, that death is going to stay with you no matter what.
Yeah.
Number two, for all my criticisms, Treat Williams and Famke Janssen are both fun. I don't believe him in a relationship, and he's a bit daddy, but they are very fun on screen together. And number three, while never as good as its inspirations, it, as I said here, it takes its inspiration from so many great places that it ends up being fun almost by accident rather than, craft or design, but fun nonetheless.
Cool. For me, Treat Williams, Kevin J. O'Connor, Famke Janssen, 1, 2, and 3.
That's fair enough. Enough.
I think they're great as the leads. I think they're really good. Their situations. You've got Joey, who's just dealing with this situation with humor. You've got Finnegan, who is trying to just survive, and you've got, again, I guess Famke Janssen's Trillian St. James, who is just trying to survive by latching.
Great name as well.
Yeah, that was Trillian. That was the girl from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. But I could have Kevin O'Connor in both sections. And the thing is, if I had him in one, I would have to have him in the other. I would have to have him.
That's what I did with Tia Carrera last week.
Exactly, yeah. but it would be much more positive, not because I find Kevin O'Connor particularly hot. It would just be like, when he's funny, he's really funny. When he's annoying, he's really annoying. And I know that's like part of his shtick kind of thing. Yeah. It almost wouldn't work without those. So I've left him off, but he could very easily have been in both love and hate. Speaking of hates, yes, number one, the bandits are a bit much, but especially Jason Fleming, who I found very annoying. But the flip side of that coin is, like so many others, when he dies a horrendous death, it's all the more fun. There's no two ways about it. The more you hate the characters, the more fun their deaths are. Two, the overuse of questionable late 90s CG. I've mentioned that more than enough. And number three, the direction and dialogue are often pretty bad, and not necessarily in a B-movie way, just in a bad way. There's a lot I've taken out of this film which I enjoyed, but make no mistake, some of the dialogue, some of the writing, and some of the direction of this film is dog shit. It's fun, but when this film is bad, it is bad.
I can never attack that kind of stuff because you've already highlighted it many times. The films I watched, or I still watch, like the straight to DVD B-movie stuff, the things that I like. So
that's the difference between you and I. You have a much higher tolerance for that kind of bollocks, much higher. When it comes to like genuinely bad direction or stuff which is horribly written, it really has. I don't know. I just can't. I can't deal with it. I can't take any enjoyment out of it. There's certainly a time and a place for it, but that's straight to the DVD stuff which you enjoy. And I'm not being overly critical. Like a lot of people, I always ask the question: who buys this shit in Tesco? I always wondered when I saw fucking, Day of the Dead 7 or some bollocks. I'm like, who's buying these? The answer is you and a bunch of other people just like you. But I really do have a low tolerance for that.
It's funny though, because I draw the line at sci-fi films, or aside from La Avalanche, I thought that was quite good. But I've never watched like the fucking Shark one.
Sharknado's terrible. That's a perfect example of a film I can't stand. Like, if a film is so bad it's good, the most important element of that is that when they were making the film, they were trying to make a good film.
Yeah.
Making these films purposefully so bad they're good just means they're bad. It was the same. Snakes in a Plane couldn't pull it off. It was too self-aware, and those Sharknado films are just that. It's like, oh look, we're making a bad film. That can make for an enjoyable trailer, sure. But a 90-minute film, fucking forget about it. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Whereas if somebody was trying to make a genuinely great film called Sharknado, it just ended up being shit. I'm like, I might have enjoyed that. But anyway.
I draw the line at those sci-fi films and the asylum films, things like that. But I mean, I love the film called Rubber, which was about a killer tire and things.
Yeah, but that was better written though. That doesn't. I don't think.
Have you seen Rubber?
I have seen Rubber, and I don't think Rubber belongs anywhere near the same conversation as Sharknado, because that is a B movie, but I don't think Sharknado is a B movie. I just think it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
I think Rubber is genuinely good, and part of it comes down to not just the direction, the writing. It needs to have that level of
movies
self
and things like that. I can't wait to get you a copy of Highway to Hell so we can finally cover Highway to Hell. I can't wait.
Which one's Highway to Hell?
I sent you the trailer a while back. That was with Rob Lowe's brother, Chad Lowe, where...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Again, I don't. The purpose of this podcast is supposed to be: do these films still hold up? I'm just not sure if it works on films which have always been terrible.
No, did these films films that you loved as a kid? Did they hold up?
Fairness,
you loved it as a kid.
Yeah, no, you are right. You are right.
Yeah.
I'll take it back.
Right. Anyway, so my hates are the bandits. They just all of them just seemed they weren't even They weren't even like tropes of themselves. They were just caricatures of other things that just didn't seem to work, and the decision making.
They were just
like
assholes.
Yeah,
but like you said, it was fun when they got killed. That was the one redeeming element of all those characters, is that they were such dickheads and they're so unlikable that you enjoyed watching them die. But when they're just beating the shit out of Joey, and I'm just like, and then 2 minutes later you've got fucking Rapey Mulligan or whatever his name is. Not Rapey Mulligan, that's not his name at all, is it? Mamuli. I was just like, oh man, this is fucking rough going. But yeah. Well, means to an end, I suppose.
Number 2 is the CGI, because when they push for the CGI, it's not good. It takes you out of the film. I do agree with that. Mm-hmm. And number 3 is Simon Canton, because his villainous take of I say his villainous take of Burke, his Burke extra that he was doing. It was he should have just been gone straight away. You didn't need him to be that weird B villain. And again, he was pure creepy at the end, like pure rapey vibes as well, when he's holding that double-barreled flare gun.
Oh, it's really odd. It's like he goes from again, the difference between him and Burke is that Burke is a shite bag, but you can see how uncomfortable he is in the position he's been put in.
Yeah.
And there are times in this film when Canton kind of hints towards that, like, oh, I've never killed anyone before. But then 2 minutes later, he is acting like a genuine sociopath. I'm like, wait, so who is this guy? Is he a fucking murderer? Like, he feels like, oh, well, I've never murdered anyone, but Jesus Christ, I've thought about it 101 times before. So yeah, Canton really didn't work for me. Some of the other characters, like you said, were very one note. He was too many notes. I just didn't know what the hell they were trying to do with him. And as I said, I just kept watching him going, man, I wish that really was Nick Nolte. He would have told him to go fuck himself. He would have rated it and given a much better performance, but it is what it is. And
that's it, 3rd for me.
Alternate titles. I will be fucking amazed if there aren't any alternate titles. There has to be a better title than Deep Rising. If there's 2 things this film needed, was a better title and much better posters. The posters for this film are dog shit.
Dude, there's fucking loads.
Oh, I knew it. I knew it. This had it written all over it.
Argentina, Living Water.
It's better. I bet Bosnia, it's better.
Bosnia, Death from the Deep.
Better.
Brazil, Tentacles.
A little bit Japanese cartoon, if you know what I
mean. Yeah, that's a horror in itself. Bulgaria, Fear of the Deep.
Yeah, better.
The French-Canadian title, Emergence of the Depths.
Not sure about that one.
Croatia, Death Under the Sea.
Yeah, but not many of them die under the sea. No. They more die on the sea, don't they?
Yeah. Estonia, Danger from the Depths.
That's okay.
Finland, Menace from the Depths.
It's fine.
France, A Cry in the Ocean.
the French, what are they like?
Yeah. Germany, Octolus, Death from the Deep.
Okay, I assume that's kind of naming what the monster is, basically. They're giving the monster a name.
I don't know, maybe.
I think that must be what it is. Because it's kind of like an octopus kind of monster, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Greece, saying how it is. One-Way Cruise.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good, actually. Yeah. Do you know, it all just leads to the point that Deep Rising is just an absolutely gash title for this film.
I love Deep Rising as a title.
Do you really? I just think it's bland. It just doesn't tell you enough.
Hungary, Ghost Ship.
What does Deep Rising even mean?
They're rising from the deep. The monster's coming from the deep.
I guess so.
It's literal. So. Japan, The Greed.
No, don't like that.
Lithuania, Monster of the Depths. I think I've said that one already. Mexico, Deep Terror.
Was it literally a different title in every country?
Peru, Living Water.
The answer is yes.
Poland, Deadly Cruise. Portugal, The Hell's Boat. Russia, Climbing from the Depths. Serbia, Deep Emergence. Spain, Deep Rising, The Mystery of the Deep. Taiwan, The Deep Sea Intercepts Sea Monsters.
See, right, this is usually when we do the section, what I'm usually critical of is like they take the title and then they just hyphenate it and just add something else. This actually needs the hyphen. Like the Deep Rising bit, I think is just too like whatever.
Yeah.
Deep Rising monster attack or something, nothing like that. I mean, pick your title. You've said about 72 of them.
Did you like Taiwan, the deep sea intercept sea monsters?
I mean, I like it. I'm not sure if it belongs on a poster.
Only a couple more. Turkey, horror in depth. Ukraine, lifting from the depths.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, at least that one is indeed worse than Deep Rising. Do you have many facts for this one?
Yeah, we got a couple. If I can find out my fact section, bear with me a sec. There it is. One of your favorite lines was ad-libbed. Kevin J. O'Connor added the line where he asks if a person can suddenly get asthma.
That's such a fucking... This film does have a lot of great lines, in fairness.
The film went over a year in post-production because it took a while to figure out how to do the various special effects for the monster.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin O'Connor wore pads for the scene where the mercenaries take turns hitting and kicking him. By the end of the shooting day, he was covered in bruises. Stephen Summers said, "I felt so terrible." Well,
yeah, I mean, they do kick the shab.
Yeah.
It's a weird scene.
Summers is grateful for people buying the Blu-ray as watching it edited on TV comes with nearly 30 minutes trimmed to allow for commercials. It's good for my pocketbook, but it makes me cry, he says.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I you wouldn't want to cut 30 minutes out of this film. Like, geez, where would you cut it from? That is one of the things, like, I can look back and for its faults. I don't know where you take 30 minutes out of this film.
No. Claire Forlani was cast as Trillia St. James. She even started shooting, but walked out just after 3 days due to creative differences with Stephen Summers. And then obviously they gave it to Famke Janssen.
Worked out well.
Yeah, Harrison Ford turned down the role of Finnegan, after which the production's budget was downsized. If he had accepted the film's original release, and the film's original release date of May 97 had gone through, Ford would have had 3 1997 movies released 2 months apart. The Devil's Own in March, Deep Rising in May, and Air Force One in July.
Well, at least one of them would have been great. I mean, Air Force One's a belter, but I mean, this would have been a different film with Harrison Ford in the lead role. But you can see him like taking up, because again, he's got that slightly dadsy thing. He would have been a similar age, like maybe a little bit older, maybe 50 in his 50s. But he could have pulled this off for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he would have had that would have felt really daddish if it was him and Famke Janssen.
No, because the thing is, even when Harrison Ford's older, like Harrison Ford is what Treat Williams isn't. He's sexy. He's a sexy.
He's not.
Oh, dude fucking
he's not. No,
Harrison Ford is handsome as fuck, dude. You are out of your goddamn mind. Like, I like objectively. I mean, I'm a straight dude, but it's like that is a super. Like, if you think he belongs in the same category of dude as Treat Williams, you are out. You are out of your goddamn mind.
I would argue that Treat Williams is handsomer.
Oh, dude, you are fucking insane.
No. If you're going for these guys looking the same age in 1997, Harrison Ford or Treat Williams, I would take Treat Williams.
Oh, I'm not sure if that is the straightest sentence of all time or just the most insane, because you cannot, like that, you have to be so straight that you can't see male handsomeness or beauty. To say that Treat Williams, of all the things you've said on 121, 122 podcasts, and this is the guy who shit on Empire Strikes Back, the guy who shit on Karate Kid, you saying that Treat Williams is more handsome than Harrison Ford is without question the most batshit thing you have ever said.
No.
Dude, there's no way the internet's got your back on this. There is no fucking way the internet has your back on this.
Well, probably not, but still, I would take him every day.
Wow, man, that is crazy.
After shooting the scene at the beginning of the film with all the extras, the first assistant director thanked the extras, then introduced director Stephen Summers to them. The extras were confused since they assumed the first AD was the director. In the Blu-ray commentary, Summers explains that if he were to give direction to any of the extras, they would get paid as actors according to the Screen Actors Guild rules.
That's crazy.
I know. The opening scenes with over 400 extras on the ocean liner was shot over the course of 5 days.
That was, like I said, good stuff. You can see where the money went.
Yeah.
Practical. See, that's the difference. People were there.
Wes Studi taught Kevin J. O'Connor how to play Brown Eyed Girl on guitar during shooting. Just randomly.
That is a random fact, Jay. I really dig it now.
It should have been the girl from Ipanema, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it really should have been the girl from Ipanema. 100%.
And that's it, really. Just a bunch of stupid ones then.
Literally, as you were saying, the last few, I was trying to imagine Treat Williams with his shirt undone at the end of Temple of Doom on the bridge with Mularam at one end.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
Right, so you're going wrong there. You said he's handsome, and then you're going back to 80s.
Yeah, but Harrison Ford.
No. Harrison Ford,
almost the same age.
Harrison Ford in 97 compared to Treat Williams in 97, which is where I've gone. Treat Williams is more handsome.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because as soon as I said that, you went, "Oh yeah, Han Solo from fucking I know
15
that. Years of age, or fucking Indiana Jones." He's a handsome man back in the 80s and 90s. Now, no, I'm not now. But
we're talking. I mean, the obvious comparison is we're talking him as the president of the United States in Air Force One. Yeah, still super handsome, dude.
I didn't say he wasn't. I'm just saying he's not more handsome than Treat Williams in 97.
That's controversial. What are we on to? Legacy. This is a weird one because I genuinely don't think it has much of a legacy, which is a bit harsh. I think the main legacy for this film is, other than being, the end of Treat Williams' experiment as a Hollywood leading man, it got some as the Mummy, like 100%, and that turned into obviously an absolutely massive hit. The budget for this film was 45 million versus 11 million box office. As I said, massive flop. And I was amazed to find out there wasn't a Deep Rising 2. I was legitimately amazed. I thought this has got straight to DVD sequel written all over it. But
I was upset it didn't have a.
I convinced myself that maybe you had told me that Deep Rising 2 existed. I in my house, I'm sure Rob told me that, and you didn't. I was just so convinced that it had to exist. I was like, well, Rob told me it did. I was like, no, Rob didn't tell me. You're just making that up now. So yeah, I both made up the sequel to this film and the fact that you told me that there was a sequel to this film. The sequel does not exist. Unbelievably so. You just feel like this has got straight to DVD sequel fodder written all over it. It feels like there's a whole bunch of films like this where it didn't do as well as hoped, so they were able to get the name for relatively cheap and then make the sequel. But
it's got franchise written all over it, isn't it?
Even if it is a straight to DVD franchise, yeah. In
a day and age where a film like R.I.P.D. can get a sequel, or fucking Tremors can get 15 sequels.
Yeah, it is insane. Like you said, considering the movies especially around this time in like the mid 90s, all these films got straight to DVD sequels. All the ones which didn't quite hit, or they were just so, they would get the straight to DVD treatment. The fact that this didn't blows my mind. In terms of making a change, you will not be surprised to hear if I was going to make one change about this film. And no, it's not Treat Williams. As I said, I do like him. It would be a move to more practical effects. Did you see before you haven't seen The Abyss? James Cameron's The Abyss.
I don't know. I'm sure I have. But then when I saw a clip of it on YouTube, I didn't remember it. So
that's great. Well, I mean, The Abyss was released 9 years earlier, and it just looks so much better than this film because it obviously part of it. And this isn't going into the whole "I love James Cameron" thing. He's clearly a best director, but he is. I mean, he's a much better director. But the use of CGI was limited in that film, so they kind of took it to the limits in the same way he did for like Terminator 2. It's used, but it's used sparingly, and the rest is a commitment to physical effects. So that film, despite the fact that it's 9 years earlier, looks so much better. And it's, as I said, it's just a shame because I think there's a lot to like in this film. And if you made that one big change to commit to as much physical effects as possible, it would have been a much better movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you on the effects thing because my one change would be effects later. I've already said it, to be fair, what my change would be. Mm-hmm. It would be getting rid of the monster at the end and having just the tentacles ripping the boat through the water.
Some of the tentacles looks a little bit ropey, but for the most part, it just about gets away with it. The monster at the end is egregious.
Yeah. If you've got the tentacles outside, mind, where it's dark anyway, it's looking better, and it's to me, I think that would have been the better way to go. And I think, I think the imagination of what the monster would have looked like would probably.
They're all the best ones when they leave it in your head.
You have that. Oh, what's her name? Chick from Twilight, Kristen Stewart. You have that film where she goes underwater and fights these monsters.
I thought that was okay.
I thought it was good, but
you got bad reviews. I thought it was decent. Yeah.
Do you see them?
No, I don't think you do.
No. So,
that's a thing they do in a lot of the best horror films. Like, I think you are always going to get some of the monsters because, as I said, it's not pure horror and it does lean more into adventure. but you could have been more subtle with the finale, that's for sure. And like the big giant CG octopus monster thing, or whatever the Germans called it, it just doesn't work, sadly.
No, I totally agree.
In terms of video games, I mean, there wasn't, unsurprisingly, a Deep Rising video game, but yes, the easy answer is Capcom. I've already referred to it earlier in the podcast. And the fact is you don't have to change much. Resident Evil Revelations, which isn't one of the numbered games, but it was one of the spin-offs that came out on the PS4, Xbox 360, and is available on the latest consoles. It's Resident Evil on a cruise ship. So it's basically already this game, and tonally it actually feels very close to this. So the only alternative I could think of is a little remembered game called Cold Fear, which is basically a Resident Evil ripoff set on a boat, which was developed by Darkworks and published by Ubisoft around 2002. It was on the, like I said, the OG Xbox and PlayStation 2 and stuff. So basically we can give them a call if Capcom says no, because the very much the obvious answer to this one is Capcom for sure, and a Resident Evil spinoff.
I'm going to agree with you, Capcom. I had that in my mind, but I would have gone Dino Crisis.
That's not a bad shout. Not a bad shout. But again, tonally, Dino Crisis exists in the same kind of world as Resident Evil. It just has dinosaurs in it. But I think we're both speaking the same language here. You get that tone of, it's a B movie, it's violent, it's silly, but it's an adventure. It ticks all those boxes. Yeah, get Capcom to do it. They're the masters of it. In terms of scores and recommendations, sir, this is going to be an interesting one. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I'll go first.
Go for it, bud.
I would recommend it. Absolutely. I think it's good. It's throwaway. It's only an hour and a half. It's fun to watch. If you like a monster film or things like that, I think it's decent to watch. For the most part, it kind of holds up. It gets rubby at the end with the main CGI. I do understand that, but a lot lets it down in regards to scoring it wise, especially from the aspect of how we score them or how we view these films in this platform. It's a 3 for me. It's like it's very middle of the road in regards to that. I still had fun watching it, but if you look at it objectively, it is definitely a 3.
Yes, it is. I mean, I can make an argument for a 2.5, and there were times when I was watching this film, I was like, is this a 2-star film? I've ended on a 3-star, despite all its faults. As I said, so much of it depends on how I feel about it, depends on how in on the tone, in on the direction, in on the acting, the script, how self-aware everything is. And I still can't decide just how self-aware it is, and maybe that's part of the magic of this film. It has plenty of faults, but it is loads of fun. It's mega derivative, but as I said, it's derivative of a lot of great films, and it takes a lot from other better films, but it still takes from them quite successfully. But would I recommend it? I'm gonna say no to a modern audience. I just think if you've not, I can't. I'm like basically come out with this film. I'm not rushing to tell my friends who are massively into films to go out and watch Deep Rising. I just couldn't do it. It's not like a terrible film, and I don't think they would hate watching it. But I think that's a big difference to be like me going out of my way to recommend it. I just couldn't. So 3 stars, same as you, bizarrely, but no recommend.
Well, I'd recommend. Right, so I think we're agreed then. That's Deep Rising. We both loved it, so I'm good with that.
That's good.
So it's your choice for next week then.
It is. It's a movie we've been meaning to do for ages, and I think this might be our first 70s movie, which is unbelievable.
No, we've done a 70s movie.
I kept thinking we'd done a 70s movie, but then I tried to think of one. I was like, I don't think we have.
48 Hours was 70s.
No, 82.
Was it?
Yeah, same with like Rambo: First Blood. Feels like a 70s film. It's 82. I don't think we've done. We've talked about doing Close Encounters. We haven't done it. Same with Jaws. Haven't done it.
Have you made me watch Star Wars yet?
Indiana Jones was 80.
Yeah. Star Wars. Have you made me watch the original?
Not the first one.
No,
we did Empire Strikes Back, which is 1980.
So if you're talking 70s, then can I guess?
Go for it.
Are you finally not shit out on Superman?
That's exactly what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to shit out on Superman. So yes, Superman the movie, 1978 Superman the movie, a film which I loved growing up, has a huge legacy. Everyone obviously still, holds Christopher Reeve as, the kind of high watermark when it comes to Superman. But make no mistake, this film was made in 1978, and I have not seen it for a long time. So as fond as my memories are of this film, I think it's going to be very interesting going back and watching it.
Is this the one where he reverses time, or is that?
Oh yeah, that is.
It's this one, is it?
It's this one, yeah, the reverse time one. So there's some interesting stuff, but make no mistake, there is still some absolutely fantastic stuff. But I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
It'll be good because it's been an age since I saw this. Probably, if I'm honest, probably 90s.
Yeah. It's been decades since I've seen this film. As much as I loved it growing up, I've not seen it for a long, long time. And it's weird because this is the one. If ever one of the original Supermans on TV, it always feels like it's Superman 2.
Yeah,
it never,
every time you see it,
because
you confuse it, don't you? Because Zod is in Superman 1 at the beginning.
Yeah. It's a ballsy move, man. They set up the sequel. Like, nowadays films get, criticized for setting up the sequel in like the end credits. In this film, they do it in the opening fucking sequence.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So, and that's why you confuse them, because you think Zod might be the bad guy in number 1, but it just turns out it's just a human. But no, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. Finally,
I think it'll be an interesting one. So, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I'll just do the usual at the moment. If anyone hasn't already, please could you go ahead and vote for us on the British Podcasting Awards. Just, we put the links on our social medias, but if not, just Google British Podcasting Awards Listener's Choice and just search for us. There are a couple of Hey You guys, but you know who we are. So just make sure you vote for the right ones. And that's it from me, mate. Other than I'm looking forward to next week now.
Cool. Okay, then. I've been Ian, he's been Rob, and you've been listening to the Hey You Guys podcast. See you next week. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
I didn't fuck it up for once. Oh, and before we forget, here is Rob with all the finer details. Got to get through those, dude.
Yeah, so basically you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Hey You Guys 80s. We're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any recommendations, any corrections or omissions we may have missed from any of the films that we've covered. Just get them in. And also, if you could, please leave us some 5-star reviews. That would really help us. And we'd like to thank, as always, Darry Fletcher at Darry Doodles for the fantastic artwork that we're now producing. Thanks for that, mate.
Cheers, Darry.
Yeah. And thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.
Cheers. Bye.